of the tragic collapse of the building under construction in George in the Western Cape. Now, a survivor has been rescued today, 6 days after the incident, and efforts continue to find more people. 13 people have been confirmed dead, while dozens remain unaccounted for. I am joined now by Alan Winde, who's the Western Cape Premier. Thanks for joining us on the program this afternoon, Premier. Firstly, how would you characterize the response efforts to this tragic building collapse in George, also considering the complexities involved in the rescue mission?
So I think, first of all, the rallying of all of our emergency services around the province very, very quickly. So straight away, you could see the professionalism, the support. Individuals who have over many years been involved in many of, disasters. Many of our officials have also taken part in international rescues, especially in earthquake environments. And so their skills came out straight away as, people who've been involved in this before. So that was outstanding. But as alongside them, it's just been unbelievable, the number of volunteers, volunteer organizations and support that's just streamed out over the last days. And it's a traumatic sight. It's a harrowing sight. But every now and again, it's a sight of absolute immense emotion and hope. And it happened again today. 118 hours into this collapse of this building, 116 hours in, and they suddenly said, hang on a second, the sniffer dogs, the cameras going in, and they picked up a survivor. And it wasn't that long after that, and you could hear the jubilation and the clapping as another survivor came out. And now there's a new energy on site, and people are going full steam again.
You're quite right. It is a harrowing sight. And with the death toll rising to 13 and several others still being trapped under the rubble, what additional measures, Premier, are being implemented to really expedite the rescue operation, but also ensuring the safety of the rescue teams and potential survivors?
So I think 2 nights ago, the bigger, heavier machinery came in. We sent as we were able to get, and we had some machinery in place in the area. But as time went on, we got bigger and bigger machines in. They've been on site, for a while now, and that's enabled us to really go layer by layer. But there's nothing that we can really do to make it go faster, because you can't take any chances, and you've got to try layer by layer. And I think today is just shown exactly why you have to do that, because you don't want to disrupt the site that you actually create another collapse of perhaps a place that someone has been in, like today with this individual. He was fine, in a cavity, and really, obviously he went to hospital to be checked out, but it seems as though, he's absolutely going to be fine.
So as we continue looking at the developments, the cause of the building collapse remains unclear at this stage. What steps are being taken to really conduct a thorough investigation into this incident? And what are the immediate priorities in terms of ensuring accountability, but also preventing similar tragedies in the future?
Absolutely. So that's why a full investigation must take place. Who's responsible? Is there someone that is culpable? What happens? Now, there are a number of investigations because there's different parts of the law that come into being. The police are busy with an investigation. They have a full team there because, of course, there's been loss of life, so it is a crime scene. And in actual fact, they really take charge of the whole scene, although they work very closely with disaster management, who the rescue team. Then the second investigation, because of regulation and legislation, is the Department of Labour. They also have a team on site doing investigations. I, on day one, appointed a team as well from a province's point of view, which is about oversight, development planning, and for me, most importantly, what went wrong. What should we be doing so that this doesn't ever happen again? Where were the faults, so that we can, and also, at least then you have different investigations for different purposes. But of course, we've also said they should work together in making sure that, if there's any information that needs to get shared, which I think in the beginning maybe wasn't all there, but we've really worked hard at making sure that Joint Operation Command is exactly that, a Joint Operation Command. And it's quite unbelievable. I mean, there's national level, provincial level, local level. Everyone's working together. I've come across firefighters and emergency personnel who've come from the Northwest province to come and help. So from across South Africa, we've got tremendous support in making sure we get to as many survivors as we can.
Let's crystallize that point. You mentioned earlier the deployment of heavy machinery and also the involvement of a number of experts. It does indicate a significant logistical operation there. Can you elaborate on the coordination efforts among different agencies and organizations who are indeed involved in this rescue mission?
Absolutely. So, of course, immediately a Joint Operation Command structure is put in place. If you're standing on site, you can see the first responders were obviously the local municipality. So you could see their vehicle is on site. That's their Operations Command. When you're standing there, you look behind it, you'll see the big provincial bus. That's the second Operations Command that got to site. And then, of course, we've got the Joint Operations Command, which is in a physical structure. It's at the district council in the permanent JOC, because they've got all the technology there to join up all of the role players. That is where the press conferences take place. That is where any communication takes place off-site, because you also don't want to disrupt what's happening. But it's quite a big site. So you've got the main site, which is cordoned off, managed by the police, but operated by disaster management. Then adjacent to it is the volunteer site. That is built into two. One is volunteers, service groups, from Gift of the Givers to Love George to, the local service clubs. That's where there's feeding stations for the firefighters. Then next to it almost looks like a laid out hardware store in tents, because you've got stuff for cutting steel. You've got even businesses have donated machinery, and then of course as it went on, the bigger machinery came in that was more capable of crunching up the concrete slabs and removing the big steel piles of steel reinforced was coming out. But you can only do it a piece at a time, because you've got to then stop, listen, put in cameras, drill holes. At one stage, you heard on the inset, at one stage they were just pumping in oxygen so that, if anybody is down there, that they are still at least getting a proper flow of oxygen. We've got some really strong professionals. Also, we've had support from Stellenbosch University. One of their professors was there on site right in the very early stages and came with some very concrete suggestions around watching how it lay from the fall. So we don't want any slippages, because that could put people in danger underneath. And so we were excavating next to the scene, etc. And it really is. It's a joint effort. And I mean, I stand there in awe, because it's a world-class joint effort.
So, Premier, given the prolonged duration of this rescue operation, how are you addressing the physical and emotional well-being of the rescue teams, who are really working tirelessly under very challenging conditions?
So they are running in shifts, and that's why there's support come from across the province initially and now across the country. So you see shifts coming and going. The initial shift, they went home, wherever home was. It could have been all the way back to Cape Town, or it could have been to a neighboring municipality like Mossel Bay. So those shifts moved out and new shifts moved in. And whether it's on site and the various shifts, or even in our hospitals, I heard from your on inset as well how certain professionals don't want to leave. But initially 17 specialist doctors and nurses, etc., were dispatched from Cape Town, and they keep on changing. Certain health department officials were left the site today, and others arrived. And even in the disaster management teams, those new shifts arrive, because we have to make sure that fatigue doesn't set in. And then, of course, I think off-site, a real key role is our social development department. So there's quite a lot of social workers permanently deployed into the area where the family members are waiting, which is just a few meters off-site. They have social workers. We've also got a building next door where we've created an open space with private rooms, social workers. Even on the site itself, There's even a volunteer masseur, so that if you're feeling a bit sore because you've been, really working under terrible conditions inside tunneling, etc., you can come out and they can do a quick massage on a leg or an arm. And so it's amazing to see how all of those across various disciplines support is in almost layers around the site.
Now, Premier, as we wrap up our conversation, but also in light of this tragic event, what discussions or initiatives are underway to really review but also strengthen building safety regulations and enforcement mechanisms to really prevent such disasters from occurring in the future?
So I think initially, if you have a look at the regulation, whether they be national labor regulations, whether they be provincial or local planning regulations, whether it's how, developments take place, where you've got principal developers, where you've got construction companies, where you've got sign-offs with professionals, be they architects or engineers. There is a structured process, and I trust that is, it's tested all the time across the world, and these structures are in place. That's why the investigation must say, where did it fail? If nothing failed other than an individual or a business was not following those rules, well, then we know what it is. But if the system failed, then we would have to change regulation or legislation, because we have to make sure that this never, ever happens again. What caused it? And that's, of course, we see these things normally when it's an earthquake, but this is not an earthquake. This is, also in layman's terms, I'm standing on the side, but this looks like a part of the construction of the actual building. There's something wrong with that construction.
Premier Winde, let me thank you for your time.